Thank you for tuning in to Cop with Critic. I'm Brian Koppen. We're with critic Iain Key. Iain Key, how the hell are you?
I'm brilliant, Brian. How are you?
Oh, good. Well, everybody can find all your writing, etc., all your criticism on Iain Key Linktree. So that's IAINKEY, no periods or anything. And that's where they can find, links to your music writing, and also links to your Facebook and Twitter X and your Instagram. And also they can find a lot of your writing at Louder Than War. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Oh, good. And what kind of stuff you've been writing about for the most part?
Mainly indie and alternative stuff.
Oh, good. So not so much the Hall of Fame people, right? That's kind of been my experience where,
No, that
yeah,
that's been the interesting thing looking at songs for this.
yeah, Hall of Fame stuff is not really that, it's been written to death, I think.
Hmm.
And so I like to I'd like to do Hall of Fame face off just because if I were to let you pick five songs, you would pick the deepest cuts that I would know nothing about.
Hmm.
So at the
Yeah,
very least here we have kind of a limiting factor where we're limited by the catalogs of these great artists. And it's
yeah.
fun to watch certain artists get beat, certain great artists get beat because of the song that the person picked is not as great as another great song the other person picked.
Hmm.
So we're doing a Hall of
Yeah.
Fame face off. Each of us picked five Rock Hall of Fame artists
Hmm.
and a song from each, and we're going to face them off. And I'm going to go first just to give the opportunity to decide if it's weak or it's strong, and kind of it will help you pick yours accordingly. If I pick a weak song, pick one of the weaker songs on your list. Maybe there is none, but let me go first with I'll do Bob Dylan, Murder Most Foul, a long ass song. Were you able to
Hmm.
listen to it? What did you think, and what will you be facing off against it?
Yes, I have listened to it. I was familiar in it when it came out. And if you pick something like Desolation Row or Visions of Joanna, um, I'd have gone for those more, to be honest with you,
Okay.
because I do think it's quite long and rambling.
Oh,
But
sure.
because of that, I'll play Pink Floyd Shine on You Crazy Diamond.
And now you didn't specify, so I listened to not only Shine On You Crazy Diamond 1 through 5, but also 6 through 9. Did you mean
Ah.
to do 1 through 9?
I did mean 1 through 9, but having
Okay.
said that, the latest 50th anniversary edition has got the full 29-minute version on it. So,
Well, good. Yeah, you made me listen to it. I'm not a huge Pink Floyd fan just
yeah.
because when I was young, they made me cover Wish You Were Here, which I thought was a little,
Hmm.
two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl. It's just like lyrically, it was a little bit simple. But this
Yeah.
thing knocked my socks off. So you're the only one who could have forced me to listen to this. I'm glad you did because it's amazing and it's funky in parts and there's not a
Yeah.
lot of singing. I'm not a huge fan of their singing, but man, their
Hmm.
instrumentation was great.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those tracks. Growing up, I was always more into new wave and indie and stuff like that. And then when I went to college, listening to this for the first time, obviously the intro, there's not a lot happens for a while. And then you get that guitar line kicking in, and it was just like, wow, what's this? And as you say, there's so much that goes on in the piece, whether you listen to the first half or the back half or whatever, and it just turned me on to like some like different music, which I hadn't really been listening to for that until that point in my life.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I would think that there's other people who do this type of music now that are
Hmm.
all very good, but the fact that they were doing this back in the day was probably pretty impressive to everybody, when
Hmm.
they're also doing, another brick in the wall, etc. But I listened to 6 through 9 first, and
Hmm.
man, like there was some cool instrument in there. I don't know if it was an effect on a guitar or an effect on a horn or a
Yeah.
keyboard, but that was crazy interesting. And then it gets funky later on, and so I was just totally impressed. I'm just not. It's so funny that you got exposed to it in college because
Hmm.
that's where we get exposed to, some of these things that people like to smoke pot to, I think. What's your
Yeah.
next song that you'd pick? Oh, and
Um,
let me go on about Murder
I was
Most
going to say,
Foul.
yeah, talk about that because
Yeah.
it's an interesting one. Like I said, I think I love 60s Dylan. And I love, like I said, I love things like Highway 61 Revisited and Blonde on Blonde, but the later stuff, it just sounds a bit dirgy to me after a while.
Oh, good. Yeah, dirty is a good word. Yeah, I think somebody brought up Dylan, 80s Dylan. They brought up on this podcast Brownsville Girl, and one thing I didn't like was just even his good songs, or like Hurricane or something. It's just kind of repetitive and long. Whereas this one, to me, it actually seemed to, because it was long and rambling and didn't have such firm parts that were so repetitive, it seemed to, like, this was an example to me of what Dylan should do instead
Hmm.
of writing a 5 minute repetitive thing. Of course, on the other end of the spectrum is stuff I prefer, like pop Dylan, which is Don't Think Twice, It's All Right.
Hmm.
Like that, being such a pop guy, I could have named that just because it's a great song. But I do
Hmm.
like how some of the lyrics later in the song, it's about the JFK assassination, but then he goes
Yeah.
on to kind of mention all these artists that you're kind of wondering why he mentioned them. Is this an LCD sound system thing where they're
Hmm.
just mentioning songs that, artists that they like on the song Losing My Edge, or are these things kind of suggestive of the time period after the assassination? So I'd have to kind of go back and look at it. But yeah, so that's kind of why I picked it. And what would you pick for your next song?
The next one I'm going to pick is The Cure, Just Like Heaven.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that. I'm gonna match up against it because that's a good one. Let's do. This has nothing to do. I don't kind of match them up based on them sounding like. So I'll pick Pearl Jam Go,
Mm.
and like for just like Kevin, this is what I want out of The Cure. Like I
Hmm.
really like their giddy, happy songs, which is not kind of maybe not what they were known for back in the
Hmm.
day, but I I contrast that with their recent album that might have been nominated or won a Grammy,
Hmm.
where it's just like so much instrument,
Yeah.
so many long instrumental sections that to me seem to go nowhere. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's not what I want the Cure for. I want the Cure for a song like Just Like Heaven. So
Hmm.
why'd you pick it? What'd you think of Pearl Jam's Go? And then I'll talk about Pearl Jam's Go too.
The reason I picked it actually, it's not it's for what it stands for as well as the song itself.
Okay.
Because when I look through the list, there's a lot of British artists who aren't in the Hall of Fame, who I think are very influential on American teens growing up in the 1980s, especially those that were featured on the John Hughes movie soundtracks, the likes of The Smiths, New Order, OMD, Psychedelic Furs, Simple
Yeah,
Minds.
yeah. The
You know,
Smiths are always mentioned, and I agree with it. They should totally be in there. People like the Pixies too.
yeah, and I think because of that, The Cure ironically didn't appear on any John Hughes soundtracks, but they could have done quite easily.
But that's why they got
Um,
in, man. So they got, the Rock Hall has something against John Hughes, apparently.
yeah, but no, I mean it's that, and like you say, I mean it's a great poppy song. And when I was doing I do a radio show. I've done it for probably about 4 years now, and I have guests on most weeks, and I always let guests choose some music. They'll play their own tracks, and then they'll choose some others. And I think The Cure, Just Like Heaven, is probably the most requested
Really?
track by musicians.
And so your guests are musicians, and they pick this
Yeah,
all the time?
yeah,
Oh, that's great. And would people Google just your name, Ian Key, and then DJ Louder Than War? And is it under the Louder Than War banner, like the name of
yeah,
your show?
yeah. All the shows that I've done are up on Mixcloud.
Oh, okay, so they can free stream it
Yeah.
on, okay, cool, on the internet.
Hmm.
Sweet. And like something like Pearl Jam Go, let me talk about it first. And I'd say that, for somebody who listened to Pearl Jam 8,000 times when he was a teen, like we were eagerly anticipating this album, this Versus album,
Hmm.
and the one-two punch. First of all, the first song Go, the opening of Go, I think it was written by the drummer who was, quickly fired after that. But Go and Animal was one of the best one-two punches, like one of the best set of album openers I'd ever heard. But
Hmm.
just Pearl Jam Go was so rough and such a nice change from the Pearl Jam 10, just because there was all those, interstitials of orchestration to try to tie the songs together into this whole. And I'm like, fuck that, man. Just get me Pearl Jam's
Yeah.
Go. Pearl Jam Go. What do you think about the song?
Yeah. I was never, I liked Nirvana, but I was never a massive fan of the kind of grunge scene and the American rock kind of
Oh,
thing of the early 90s.
okay.
I was more listening to bands like Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine.
Oh, I'm gonna have to
Um,
listen to that.
so, so a lot of like DIY in British indie kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I did actually buy Versus because I'd been over in Germany for some work stuff, and the only things I could listen to on um, that tune into on the radio at the time that weren't German sort of songs or German stations was the American Forces Network. And they used to play like Pearl Jam and Nirvana just on repeat. So
Oh, oh,
I
cool. I
did,
guess that's okay. It's better than
yeah,
listening to German, I suppose.
yeah. So no, so it's one of the only Pearl Jam songs I do actually recognize. But yeah,
Oh, cool. It's real
I
poppy.
like it.
It's real
I do
poppy.
like it.
It's short and catchy. Like I think a lot of hard rock songs can be catchy and pop, like
Mhm,
Korn's "Got the Life" and Pearl Jam's "Go." Like if they're catchy, um, memorable in a good way, I think
mhm.
that this is a good example of hard rock and pop. What do you think about the? What do you
Yeah.
think about the idea that hard rock can be pop?
Well, I think yeah, because I mean, if you think like Metallica or somebody like that, I mean, they started off as hard rock, but I don't think a lot of people now would see them necessarily as a hard rock band because they've crossed over into more contemporary space.
Yeah, yeah, like their metal stuff,
Yeah.
they're really long kind of metal-y
hmm
songs. It's like I wouldn't call any of those pop, but a lot of the stuff on the Black Album,
hmm
um, is them at their poppiest, and I love it. All right, so what do you pick next?
Let's go for Elvis, if I can dream.
I can't wait to hear about this. Let's put it against Willie Nelson's Stay a Little Longer live. I listened to If I Can Dream, and it was Elvis at his most positive. I was
hmm
just taken aback by how inspirational he was, or whoever wrote
hmm
the lyrics. But also, he sung it with such passion that I
Yeah.
almost thought he kind of believed it.
hmm
And maybe this was to the extent he needed redemption, he was saying something like a man can be redeemed
hmm
and fly. He can go to heaven or whatever. And I was like, maybe this is, Elvis thinks this is his redemption song. If I inspire these people to go be good people, maybe I'll be able to fly to the good
hmm
place, whatever that is.
hmm
So yeah, why'd you pick this one out of all of them, and what did you think about Willie Nelson Stay a Little Longer?
Um, with Elvis, it's an interesting one because from this side of the world, growing up in the 70s, my introduction to Elvis was the films that used to get shown like on repeat during the summer holidays.
Okay.
So
I didn't know they were showing on the repeat. That's funny.
yeah, most like at least you probably used to get one every once a week on like mid-afternoon kind of thing. So that was kind of what I knew as Elvis. And it was similar to the Beatles as well, really, because I was like 10, 15 years detached from their peaks, as it were. So it was only then being introduced to Elvis's early stuff, which is the rock and roll stuff. But then when the 68 comeback special came out and was released on DVD and things and
Yeah.
watching it, and then having the backstory of this track as well, because I know Colonel Tom Parker didn't want him to record this. He wanted him to finish the comeback special on another track. But Elvis chose to, well, he wanted to do this because I think it was just after Robert F. Kennedy had been assassinated.
Oh gosh.
So I think because Martin Luther King was assassinated in the April, wasn't it? I can't remember what year, but it might have been around the same time. But it was following that was this song was written.
Oh wow, this kind of should have matched it up against Bob Dylan's "Murder Most Foul." I guess we have
Yes,
a dead Kennedy's episode, unfortunately.
yeah. So no, and it was just that, it's one. I mean, I could have easily chosen Wonder of You as well, but I just think this is when he steps out on that stage in that white suit singing this. It's just one of those pure pop moments that you can't really forget once you've seen it.
So the comeback special was the white suit, not the black leather
hmm
suit.
hmm
Okay, that's the one I like. Is that was he was singing? Man, some of the I'm forgetting the songs that I love on that one, but yeah, that's when I love him the most because he was just so
hmm
powerful and he always picked
Yeah,
great songs. Like he even did "My Way," I think. I don't know if it was
yeah.
on that concert, was it?
Yeah, and I mean, there's various parts to the concert where they just sat around jamming and messing about, and then there's more orchestrated and polished bits as well. But he just looked like he's having a great time, and it's I can imagine after being forced to make loads of films
Yeah.
and not and losing that kind of respect possibly as a musician, and then getting to do that, it was like him coming back.
That's great. It's like This is what I am. You can make fun of the
Mhm.
whole actor, attempt or whatever, but I'm one of the best singers there ever was. And so, what did you think about Willie Nelson Stay a Little Longer?
It's one of those songs that I've heard so many times in my life, and I've
Really?
never known who it was. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
it's it, it it's just classic 60s Americana.
Yeah, like, a lot of times these people will, all their people on stage will each have a turn with their, here's the fiddle section, here's the
Hmm.
guitar solo section, here's the the lap steel, the steel guitar section. And it's like here they all went together perfectly and seamlessly and kind of kept it a high energy pop song.
Hmm.
And that's not always the case. And so I love Willie. I bought the Waylon, I bought a Waylon box set, a Willie box
Hmm.
set, and a Johnny Cash box set. And the only one I
Right.
regret is the Johnny Cash one. But the Willie Nelson one made me a fan for life. And the live versions of this one and Whiskey River are on that box set. And
Mhm.
so I like it a lot. So you
He's
picked
written
it.
some great songs.
Oh yeah, I mean, and even he was a great songwriter, and so he has a lot of studio versions I like, but I think I've
Hmm.
yet to listen to the studio version of Stay a Little Longer. I
Hmm.
think I might have done it once and it wasn't as good. And so let me pick Lou Reed's Perfect Day, and what are you going to pick against it? What do you think of Lou Reed's Perfect Day?
Um, I'm gonna go with God Only Knows, Beach Boys.
Yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah.
I went back and listened to it. I think I used to think this song was their best. No, I'm
Hmm.
not so sure. And the reason why I say that is because like a lot of the songs on Pet Sounds, it's kind of short. And
Hmm.
also I don't like the funky middle.
Mm.
I think there's like I need a transition into the second verse. I'm going to stop the song with these couple little
Yeah.
notes, and it will lead great to the second verse. But I'm just like, yeah, but I don't like that part. And
Yeah.
so it's a great verse, etc. Great, lyrical hook, great
Hmm.
vocal hook, whatever. But I like other Beach Boys songs better, even though I remember this being one of my favorites. I
Hmm.
think upon revisit, it pleased me less than it used to as a child.
Hmm.
So yeah, so why'd you pick it among all the other Beach Boy songs you could have picked?
Again, it goes back to childhood, really. To me, this is America or American music.
Oh, good.
Um, and as I mentioned, watching Elvis films, watching things like the Red Hand Gang and Banana Splits, reading Marvel comics. It's like in Britain, for possibly not around the world. It was just you just had this thing that America was like this dream, and it was always sunny, and everybody's always nice, and everybody's always smiling. And God only knows just makes me think of that.
And meanwhile, Brian Wilson is just sitting in his room, huh?
Yeah,
He's like, I'm not going to the beach. Fuck that, dude. I'm gonna write some
yeah,
more
yeah.
songs. I haven't heard. I didn't
I
hear.
was almost picked Love and Mercy, which is one of Brian's solo tracks, because again that's just amazing as well. But I mean, such a talented singer and songwriter.
Yeah, I did like it. Did you watch the movie Love and Mercy with what's
Yeah,
his name? With Cusack?
John Cusack. Yeah,
Did you like it?
yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good.
I think Cusack and Elizabeth, whoever the female interest was,
Hmm.
they're both extremely likable. And so yeah, the Beach Boys are great. Pet Sounds, it's like, everybody, proclaims it the best, and maybe it was novel at the time, but you just
Hmm.
go back to it, and there's just so many short, not even songs. You're just like, what
Yeah,
the fuck is this? But there's some
yeah,
great, great songs on there.
yeah.
All right,
I must.
so
I'm not a fan of Pet Sounds at all.
oh,
I don't
good.
think it's a really. I mean, it's always like lauded as being one of the best, but like you say, this it's just not. I don't feel it's a complete album.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think maybe they were just like, oh, look at this new album. Um, Great, we have new Beach Boys. We're gonna
Mhm.
look how great is he at the studio, and you're kind of like, well, there was a
Yeah.
Phil Spector before him, so
Mm.
I think Phil Spector was pretty good too, and I think he might have uh, he might have owed a debt to Phil Spector. Who
Hmm.
knows? But what do you think about Lou Reed's Perfect Day?
It's an interesting one because I love Transformer. And I did used to love this song, but it's a little bit tainted for us because when I found out it was about him taking heroin,
Is it?
and
I
then
still didn't know that till right now. Thank you. Thank you for
yeah,
ruining the song for me.
there's a children's charity event that happens on the BBC every November called Children in Need,
Okay.
and in the 90s they had a kind of charity ensemble version of the cover of this with I can't remember all the people. I think Kylie was on it, and
Okay.
Evan Dando was on it, and various other people. And you just sit there watching it, going, "You're raising money to give children a better life, singing a song that's about taking drugs."
Oh no. Now, is it a metaphor or is the perfect day thing pretty literal, but he just happened to be on heroin when he had this perfect day? Did he actually go to a park and have a picnic on a blanket or no?
I've read that it is about what his idea is of having a perfect day.
Okay. And then
So
it'll involve being on heroin, of course, but
yeah,
I wonder if he ever did go to that park.
yeah.
What I'll say about this song is I think that Lou Reed loses, even though the beginning of the song is one of the best things I've heard him do,
Hmm.
which is not saying a lot because I haven't been exposed to much of his.
Hmm.
But at the end, a long, repetitive outro with music I hate, and it's just you're gonna reap what you sow. And
Yeah.
unless you knew that the first part of the song was metaphorical, you're
Hmm.
like, hold on, you just had this wonderful day at the park,
Hmm.
right? Drinking sangria in the park with some romantic interest, and now you're saying you're gonna reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And so I suppose I should have taken that as a clue that it was about
Mm.
heroin. Maybe it was metaphorical rather than literal, but it doesn't work musically. It's repetitive, and I just don't like the end. What do you think about the ending?
So, I'd forgotten about the ending, to be honest with you. So
This is
you just
yeah, because it's
mentioned
so
that.
good, except the ending
Yeah,
is so
yeah.
shitty.
You
It's
just
you're
it
you're
just
gonna
kind of
reap just
washes
what you
over
sow.
you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a fan at all.
So,
Who went first on that one? I think you did.
hmm.
So the last one will be Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody." What do you think
Hmm.
about that song, and what are you going to face off against it?
It's an absolute classic song. Um, I think over here, I think "Greatest Love of All" was released first, but didn't chart. But then I think this was the second single that charted. I think, or was it the first single off the second album?
Yeah, it was pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an absolute belting disco song. I remember dancing to it in my teens. I'll admit to
You said,
that.
wait, you say that you danced to this in your teens?
Yeah, yeah, in my teens, yeah. It was disco music. It was used to get played in clubs.
And so you used to go to the club, aka disco, and this song would be
Hmm.
on, and
Yeah,
Ian Key
yeah,
would go crazy on it.
yeah.
I
I
love
won't
that.
say go crazy, but yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
you're facing off against it with Green Day's American Idiot, right?
yeah.
And so yeah, how'd you pick that one out of all the Green Day songs?
I think this one's possibly the most important of all of their songs because it resurrected the career and it's grown beyond being the opening track on the album with, obviously the stage play and everything else that's happened
Oh
off the
yeah,
back of it.
yeah.
And I think it seems quite fitted as well for current affairs.
Do you th now is this big in the UK because you think of America as a bunch of idiots?
No, no, I
At least
mean,
the politics maybe. Because they're talking about were they
politics
talking
at the
about Trump
moment,
in particular or were they talking about Bush? I forgot.
it would have been Bush at the time, wasn't it?
And now they're singing it with Trump in mind, probably.
Well, yeah.
And so
But
I suppose over there you don't think we're idiots, except certain political leaders we elect might be.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's strange that I was out with one of my friends, a guy called Craig Walker, he was in an Irish band in the 90s called Power of Dreams. He lives over in LA
Cool.
and he was over in the UK last week and we were talking about it and he was like going, most Americans haven't a clue what's going on. Most not in a case of they're idiots and they don't know what's going on, but half of what Trump's doing
Yeah.
doesn't come into their daily lives.
Oh yeah, there's such low
It,
information voters, and there's so much corruption going on, and
yeah.
that they're kind of. I think it's kind of tribalism in that. Do they really give a shit what Trump is doing? Not
Hmm.
really. It's that he is against who they're against.
Yeah.
They might be anti-immigrant. Some of MAGA or whatever,
Hmm.
Make America Great Again,
Hmm.
is they're just like we don't like immigrants. And so we want you to be, as long as they're occasionally saying awful things about immigrants, we like you. It's just like,
Hmm.
are you serious? Like every campaign promise, even he kind of, either he didn't do or he did and it
Hmm.
hasn't worked very well. And you're just like, they were always just pro him. And it's not. Some people like authoritarians too. I think
Hmm.
that's kind of the case with some of these people. But yeah, so American Idiot does kind of work for certain elected
Hmm.
leaders and their foreign adventures, etc. I picked I Want to Dance with Somebody because it's, yeah, high energy. This is Whitney Houston. Just back when I called her Sweatshirt Whitney, just because it's
Hmm.
when she used to
Yeah.
be just so casual and fun and high energy. I think
Luminous,
is
luminous pants and stuff.
or leggings and
Leggings, that's
turtleneck
the
under
word I was
a
looking for. Yeah.
sweatshirt or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like I think I had initially picked, I Will Always Love You, but I'm like, dude,
Hmm.
that's a great song, but I don't want to listen to it. And
Wasn't that
this
written by Willie Nelson though as well?
did he?
I need to have a look. I'm
Well,
sure.
I mean, I think Dolly sang it first.
Oh, sorry, it was
Yeah.
Dolly. Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't to me, yeah, so I mean it means less if it's a cover, but I don't think Whitney Houston wrote this one either. So it's like
No.
she's just a great singer. And I mean, as far as American Idiot, I think it's poppy as hell, which I like out of Green Day. I must think like somebody picked a Green Day song that was just not poppy, and I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, Green
Hmm.
Day is the poppiest punk band, the biggest pop punk band ever, right? And
Yeah.
something like the song called Holiday, remember that one?
Yeah.
Like
So.
that one is the one from this period I think that I like a lot. And an American Idiot. Like, I don't really like when people get involved with politics, just like when Eddie Vedder
Hmm.
got all into politics. But George W. Bush, he kind of brought
Hmm.
out the politics in Green Day and Pearl Jam, and I'm just
Hmm.
like, all right. I mean, I'd rather listen to him talk about getting high, but whatever. It's a
Yeah.
poppy song, and I'll take it.
Yeah.
All
But
right,
the
so
whole, I
let's.
think the whole album's great though. I mean, it's got some great songs on there, and like I say, I think the whole album as a piece has transcended being a Green Day album now.
Now, are other songs on the American Idiot album, are they about politics or no?
No, they're more about the character Jimmy and his life and how he goes about his life and what happens to him.
And who's Jimmy? Is it a concept album? Who's Jimmy?
It's yeah, it's concept album because when they did it on Broadway, um,
Oh,
Billy Joe actually appeared on a couple of the shows and actually played the character
oh,
in the
cool.
musical.
And
So
so they wrote it with the musical in mind.
no, not at all. But it just fitted that. It just fitted that, and it's somebody actually pro. There's actually a documentary called American Idiot, and it shows how somebody had actually picked up on it, and also the following album, and said actually you could make a really good play out of this,
Oh, good. Yeah, that
and
makes
then
sense. That's
got
so
got
funny that he wasn't fishing for that at all, but it was so
no,
good as a concept album. They're like, dude, we're going to turn this into a musical. That's
yeah.
amazing.
So I know I think Tom Hanks bought the right for it to be a film to make a film out of it, but it's never happened yet. So.
Yeah, I wonder if it'd be as good as a film or a play. I would think the musical would always be better. I mean, they could chock it
Yeah.
full of Green Day songs and it would be great though.
Yeah, I think the experience of going to the theatre and watching it will be better.
Well, I'll never listen to that album in the same way. So thank you so much, Ian Key. And Ian Key is on Linktree, IAINKEY, and there you'll find the links to all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and you'll see that he's Louder Than War, and so you can check out the criticism on Louder Than War, but also check out his DJ sets, right? His interviews with for Louder Than War, which are all on
Mhm.
Mixcloud. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Cool. Ian Key, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me. Cheers, Brian.